Hello student, I hope everybody is fine, enjoying your good health with your family members. And in continuation with the series of taxonomy, we already have a tutorial with respect to plant taxonomy. Today we will study about animal taxonomy, okay? So this will be a bit more challenging, interesting as well as difficult you can call it, because the animal world is massive and we have good number of phylum or phylum to study in this particular taxonomy. As you can see on the screen that in this particular screenshot, and you should take it from your respective mobiles or laptop, whatever you are using to view this tutorial, that we have to study the hierarchy classification for humans as well as an animal called frogs. Okay. So first of all, just see the terms we are going to use in this hierarchical classification. In the plant taxonomy already I have told you, but for animal stuff, first kingdom is Animalia, as you can see here. First kingdom is Animalia. This is a classification for humans, okay. Then the phylum is Chordata. Just check out the names and write it down also properly. Kingdom Animalia, phylum is Chordata, then class is Mammalia. Check out the new terms. Then order is Primate. Then family is Hominidae, H-O-M-I, Homi, and Nidae, N-I-D-A-E, okay. Hominidae, new word for you, write it down, that is the family. Then genus, I hope some of you know it, is Homo, and species is Sapiens. So this is how we classify in classification hierarchy for humans, starting with kingdom, then phylum, class, order, family, genus and species. So I already have told you mnemonic to learn these terms. If you don't know it, so please view the earlier video tutorial for the same. Now this is the definition for animal classification, okay, that why we need it. So in animal classification, we give the animals a specific names, so that people all over the world, irrespective of their respective language they use, so they can communicate among themselves, because no matter what language they speak, the scientific name or the names in case of the animals remain constant or same throughout the world. So it helps them to learn, to study the animals according to their respective names. As we all have our respective names, same is the case for the animals, that in order to make them more good for study line, they are given scientific names. So in this tutorial, we are going to study about something called phylum, okay. So we have different types of phyla or phylum for the animal classification for our syllabus. So in order to learn that particular phylum, we have a good mnemonic, you can call it, and you can learn it very simple. It is PCP, and other word is name, a slight differentiation, that now the name becomes NAA, okay. So if you learn these two terms, PCP, name, so you will learn all the animal phyla in sequential order. That will let you know that how this differentiation and complexity changes. So just have these names and listen it very carefully. We will repeating it the whole tutorial, of course. So P is Porifera, Porifera. Then is Cnidarians or Cnidaria, and then is Platyhelminthes, Platyhelminthes. Then is Nematoda, then is Annelida, Arthropoda, Mollusca, and Echinodermata. So these names are, some of them are quite tongue twister. So, I prefer that first read these names from your textbook. So, you are used to such names and then only go for the tutorial view. Okay? Otherwise, it become hard for to learn the names itself, leave aside the examples of each phyla. So, again repeat Porifera, then is Cnidaria, and then is Platyhelminthes, then Nematoda, Annelida, Arthropoda, Mollusca, and Echinodermata. So, we are going to read all these approximately 9 names or 8 names in this particular tutorial. So, just know about these names and then we will study one by one as we proceed in the class. Now, before we move into that, just a reflection that what terms we are going to use. So, as I have told you, in classification of taxonomy or taxonomical or taxonomy chapter, these terms should be known to you. First is kingdom, then phylum, then class, then order. Though we won't need to learn the define the terms, but if you can, it will be good for you. So, kingdom, phylum, class, order, and the mnemonic song I have asked you to learn about them. Then family. So, this will help you out with genus and species, that how we make a hierarchical classification under the chapter taxonomy for various animals. Okay. Now, this is the term that you have to really understand, because on these factors we are going to classify the animals, okay, or the phyla you can call it. First is symmetry. Then what do you mean by symmetry? Okay. So, animals can be classified on the basis of their symmetry. So, we in your book are having 2 in terms symmetrical pattern. So, if there is no symmetry in the body line, we call them asymmetrical. Okay? That only one plane that passes through the body does not divide them in equal half. So, if malo the shape body is something like that, and if you run a line through it, so divided into 2 equal halves. That is in case of symmetrical pattern. But in case of asymmetrical pattern, this type of existence won't exist. Okay? So, that is called asymmetrical. So, animals under sponges category, we will read about them. So, they are mostly asymmetrical. But in the organism where a plane passing through the central axis of the body break them into identical halves. So, we have 2 terms here. One is called radial symmetry. So, where a single plane break up the body or divide the body in 2 equal parameters or 2 identical halves. So, examples are there, we will read about them as we move in tutorial. And similarly is called bilateral symmetry. Okay. So, in this bilateral symmetry, again you can write it down, that the body, when we divide it into a single plane, the body can be divided into identical left and right half only in one plane. Okay. Make sure in that. So, in that radial symmetry, any plane is there. Okay. And in bilateral symmetry, it is one plane only. So, what is any plane and what is one plane? Just see in this particular diagram, that gives you some idea. So, as you can see, in case of radial symmetry, as you can see in this diagram, I can divide the body in 2 equal half in any plane. You see, one plane is this side, other plane is this side, other plane is that side. So, on any axis if I divide, the body is basically divided into 2 identical half, you can say it. But in case of bilateral symmetry, you can see I can only go for one plane like that. So, you have one half here, one half this side. So, that is the bilateral symmetry. So, first the definition of symmetry and the term we use it for its explanation is the first part, how to classify these animals. Second is again the term we are going to use many times in this particular chapter, is called diploblastic or triploblastic. So, make sure the name should be known to you. These terms are very important for all. First is diploblastic or triploblastic. Okay. Now, check out the definition. This is the animals in which the cells are arranged in 2 embryonic layers. Underline this word, 2 embryonic layers. First is external ectoderm and internal endoderm. You know, there are 3 layers of cells that makes up the whole tissue of organization. So, one is ectoderm, the outermost layer, and the endoderm. So, when there are 2 layers, external is ectoderm, internal is endoderm, then we call such animals are diploblastic. Di is 2 layers, okay, diploblastic. So, in particular these 2 layers, they have one undifferentiated layer called mesoglea. Okay, the term is, underline this word, mesoglea. So, MESO, okay, GLEA. So, that is the undifferentiated layer between the ecto and the endoderm. So, undifferentiated layer in between. So, they call it the word mesoglea. Okay, that is also present between the two. But in case of the animals, they have the third germinal layer, okay, called mesoderm in between ectoderm and endoderm. So, we already have read, one is ectoderm, the outermost layer, second was the endoderm, which is the innermost layer, and third one is in between called mesoderm. Okay, derm is the layer. Okay, so the mesoderm. So when the animals in which we have all these 3 layers, so ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. So 3 layer and 3 is for tri. So called triploblastic animals. Okay, so one is diploblastic, other is triploblastic. So you should know these 2 terms very carefully. Then the third feature that we are going to study in this classification is the word called coelom. Okay, coelom means cavity. So this cavity is present or absent depending upon the presence or absence of cavity between body wall and the gut. Gut is the stomach zone. Okay, so the body wall and the gut, if the cavity is present, we call them the coelom animal. If it is not, so it is absent. So the body cavity which is lined by mesoderm, so I have just told you the word mesoderm, so it line a cavity, so that cavity is called coelom. So the animals those have coelom in them are called coelomates. Underline this word, coelomates, COELOMATES, okay, coelomates. So write this word again, because sometimes we ask to define what are coelomates. And then the animals where the body cavity is not lined by the middle layer mesoderm, so in that case they have scattered pouches. So in some of this cavity we call them pseudocoelom. Pseudo is false cavity. Okay, so if in some animals this cavity is not lined by mesoderm, in first case it was lined, so we call them coelomate. In some of the animals this cavity is not lined by this layer mesoderm, then we call them as pseudocoelom, that is false cavity. And the animals in which these cavities are absent totally, we call them acoelomates. Okay, acoelomates. So you have 3 terms under coelom, that is a cavity. So in that case, if this cavity is bounded by a mesodermal layer, so the animals is called the coelomate. If it is not being lined by the mesoderm here, then we call them as pseudocoelom. Make sure this term should be very clear. And if it is totally absent, then we call them as acoelomate. So these 3 terms, number 1, the coelomates, the pseudocoelom, and of course acoelomate. It should be very clear about it. So we have seen 3 terms here. One is the symmetry in which the body is, and number 2 is the diploblastic or triploblastic, and third one that we have just checked out is called the coelomate, or the cavity that we are going to study about these animals. So these all things should be very clear, so that we can understand and read the taxonomy of animal kingdom. Now let us begin one by one phylum. So first phyla in your syllabi is called Porifera, that included all the sponges, and they have pores throughout the body, hence the name Porifera. So they have pores throughout the body. And please read out this term in your textbook also, okay? And they are basically sessile. Sessile means they remain fixed to a single place. That place we normally is called substratum. S-U-B-S, substrate, T-R-A-T-U-M, substratum, okay? So that means they remain fixed to a one place. Though they are animal, they won't move, and hence the word it is called sessile. If they move, they use the word called motile, okay? M-O-T-I-L-E. So motile means movement, sessile means totally stagnant at the same place. So this term should be known to you. And they feed by filtering the food particles from water that enter into the body through the pores. So the water enter into the body through the pores, carrying all the nutrients, and then water comes out of the body, leaving the nutrient inside the body itself and carrying the waste out. So they have that mode of primitive mode, you can say it, in form as far as their taxonomical points are concerned. Then I have told you the sponges are the examples. They are the simplest of all animal. They won't have tissues or true tissue, you can call them. And as I have told you, they are asymmetrical. So please pause the tutorial video and write in all these points for each phyla, because that will help you to maintain or write a note on them. Then as I have told you, they belong to this Porifera phylum, and they are, as I have told you, sedentary animals, sessile animals. Then the species, they live in fresh water also, but basically they are from the marine segment. Then sponges and plant are attached, I have told you, attached to a body called substratum. As the body is perforated, they have numerous pores which support the framework, body wall, that is, and basically which is composed, underline the word silica. The body wall is made up of silica, and the substance we call this silica as, underline the word spongin. So sometimes you ask you what is spongin. So you should know these spongins are the basically a substance that make the body wall of porifers or sponges. So these things should be known to you, and these same points are repeated here for your reference. So I have told you the body has no symmetry, so asymmetrical body. So they have no mouth, no anal pore. So from the pores only the water moves in and do circulation. Then I have told you their body is made up of silica. It is called calcium carbonate in chemical terms or chemistry terms, that support the body. So underline that word, silica or calcium carbonate. So write down these points for porifers, and you can see these diagrams for sponges. They remain basically fixed to the respective substratum. Then come the second one called cnidarians, or we call them cnidaria. And in cnidaria we have examples of sea anemone or corals or tentacles with the hydra stuff. You all have seen it. Now underline the data under these taxonomical features of these animals. So with the help of tentacles, they take the food inside their mouth, and here the gastric cavity is called gastrovascular cavity, okay? So underline this word, gastrovascular cavity, that is the digestive sac in them. And then undigested food is excreted or through mouth only, so they have one opening through it. And underline the new word here. So they have radial symmetry. Make sure you have seen this diagram of hydra number of times for that example case, okay? And in case of the respective note on this particular phyla, to underline this, basically more or less the most of the cnidarians are marine. That means they are found in the ocean, and some of them are available in the fresh water, but basically they are marine creature, okay? Examples are corals and sea anemones. You might have heard these names, so please check these names from a book also. I already have told you symmetry is radial, and you can see it is symmetrical around vertical axis. That is the definition for that, radial symmetry. So underline all these features for the phyla number 2 called cnidaria, okay? Then this is the diagram that you might have seen, the stinging cells of a jellyfish. The example is there. So they have the stinging cells because if they sting in this human body, they give a very painful shot. Okay, and same thing is mentioned here. You can see the body wall is composed of two layers. That is a central gas digestive cavity, and they have an opening mouth. Then they have told you that the body is more or less tubular, and they are movable arms called tentacles. So for their arms, we are using a word called tentacles containing the stinging cells. So with that stinging cells, they stun the prey and even kill them, catch them, and then feed on them. Then third is called Platyhelminthes. So underline this term again. See the name, Platyhelminthes. So you should know how to pronounce the name, Platyhelminthes. So all the flatworms come into this particular phyla, and they are all mobile, and most of them are free living carnivores. Write down the new word, free living carnivores. So they have a muscular tube projecting through the mouth that sucks the food. So underline this data, these points for your reference. And then food is transported. Again, they have something called gastrovascular cavity, and undigested food and waste is again thrown through the mouth. So again, they have single opening to intake and excrete the waste also. But they said that in some cases when they have a parasitic mode, so they absorb the digestive food of the host, so such as liver flukes, which feed on liver or feed on this body organ, and tapeworm normally find in intestine. So they also absorb the digested food in the host body. And then they have given you some data that you should write it down. So they have the underline the word unsegmented, that means body is not divided into segments. Okay, so unsegmented worm, and they are soft, bilaterally symmetrical body, and you can say that there is only one plane symmetry that I have told you already, that divide the body in two equal halves. Then the examples are there, some are parasites also, some are free living also, and they are found in marine water also, fresh water also. Approximately they can have a habitat everywhere on this planet Earth. Okay, so underline the last point here. So excretion of waste, underline this word, waste product is affected by a peculiar, so they have a flame cell. Okay, and write down the word flame, FLAME. So excretory cells here are called flame cells, which through with the help of flame cells they put their body waste out of the system. So this is a new word here, flame cell for you, write it down, because you might get one word question on flame. I again repeat, FLAME, flame cells. Then we have the some diagrams here. You can see the flatworm under the heading Platyhelminthes, and this data I already have told you. For your revision, you can say they have bilateral symmetry. Again, they have mouth and they have no anal opening. So they have a flattened body, and examples all the tapeworms and planarias. So they come under this heading of Platyhelminthes. Now come the last 5 approximately phyla, more or less here. The first one is nematode. So make sure you should have your textbook on in your vicinity, because these names you can then refer and see the other diagrams and the other examples with the same stuff. Okay, so now you can see in nematodes we basically have roundworms, and they have the complete digestive tract. So that means they have two openings, one is the mouth to intake and the anal opening for excreting the food product out. And basically they are decomposers, they are parasitic also, they are free living also, and some of the parasites that live in a human body, one is pinworm and hookworm. So these types of various types of diagram you can see here. So they infect our intestine and create a havoc when we are infected by them. So this is the diagram you can see of roundworms. They have cylindrical body and they infect our various organs in the system when we get infected by these nematodes. And here are some of these name for the next, called Annelida. Underline this now name, Annelida. Here you can see the body has lines or segment. So here the body is divided into segments, so we call them as segmental worms. Okay, so they are repeating segments on the body line. And for the feature of this particular annelids, so write it down. First is segmented body. All earthworm and leeches come into this category. Okay, the good example for that. Then they have longitudinal and circular muscles fibers surrounding the body wall. Underline the word longitudinal and circular muscles. Then here is the new term for you, that they have closed circulatory system. That means the blood remain contained within the vessels. So they have the blood vessels in which the blood runs. So these are some of the features for Annelida. Then further you can write it down for the same phyla annelids. So they are the true worms here with soft and elongated bilateral symmetrical body. Write down all these terms. So number one, true worms, soft, elongated, bilateral symmetrical body with the ring-like segments going throughout. Underline the new word. These segments are called metameres. M-E-T-A. Metameres. M-E-R-E-S. Okay, these segmented lines are referred as metameres. So we also call them as segmented worms. Make sure you should know this new term called metameres here. Then the further example, you have told you that the body cavity, so the two tubes separated, and we call that body cavity as coelom. And as already told you that coelom is the cavity in the body line. So they are coelomate animals, you can call it. And then we have some examples. They again can be living in various habitats, including marine or freshwater. So all these features of Annelida should be known to you. Okay, and if you can sum up, so these are the points. Number one, bilateral symmetry. I have told you they have separate mouth and anal opening for body food intake and excrete them. Then body is composed of segments. An example basically are earthworm and various types of leeches. Then the next phyla is the phyla which consists of the maximum animals in the animal kingdom. Okay, so write it down for that. This phyla contains all the maximum animals, approximately you call them. All is not the right word, but maximum animals in the animal kingdom. So the phyla is called arthropods. Okay, artho or arthropods. The pod means legs. Okay, so they have a joint legs. You can see they have these four pairs joined together, hence the name arthropoda. Okay, so legs with many joints. They underline these features here. Number one, the excretion takes place through a new name called Malphigian tubules. Write it down. M-A-L Mel P-I-P-G-N G-H-I-A-N. Okay, Malphigian tubules. So this is their excretory organ, you can call it. So it happens. And fertilization is usually internal. This is a new term now coming to us. And then there is a new word called oviparous. So check it down. One is called oviparous animals. So these are some animals which lay eggs when they produce the new babies. Oviparous. Okay. Another is viviparous, in which the animals produce the young ones. We read this topic again in the other coming phylas. For the time being, you just write down the new word. They are mostly oviparous. Okay. And in this case again, they develop maybe direct or indirect. So indirect, you might have heard the word called metamorphosis. You might have seen in case of frogs in some of the time, but here you can see the word in caterpillar or the butterfly. So their drastic change takes place. So regarding frogs, we read about in the amphibian cycle when we take up that video tutorial after this. Okay, so this is some of the features of arthropods. Further, you can write it down and make sure that you should know them. Approximately, I have told you that 75% of animals belong to this phyla. So they have approximately a big number. If you want to know the number, you can see 1 billion, billions, massive number, you can check it out. Then we call them as underline this word, crustaceans. Then there are various types of names that include in this arthropods, then arachnids, then insects, centipedes and millipedes. So they basically are the various types of names that should be letting you know in coming tutorials also, as well as here you should know only the name first. First is crustaceans. Write down this word, crustaceans. Then is called arachnids. So spiders and scorpions come in arachnids. Then insects, and then centipedes and millipedes. Okay, so they are various category, you can call them, for the arthropods. Now check out the general feature of these arthropods. So number one, you can see the body is divided into three parts: head, thorax and abdomen. So you can see in this diagram the body has three parts, 1, 2 and 3 if you call them. The first part consists head, then the thorax and then the abdomen. Okay, and only these three parts you should be knowing. That is enough for your class: head, thorax and abdomen approximately. Then there is something called in midsection in thorax, they have joint appendages. Okay, that joins the various pods, you can call it, in this phyla called arthropoda. Arthropods. Then here we have some of the terms that you should be knowing. As you can see the animal here, or the insect here, which is quite familiar nowadays, belonging to the system that looks like close to the locust family or locust stuff. So you can see first word is called hemolymph. Underline this word. So they have open circulatory system. That means they won't have blood vessels in which the blood flow, as in the last phylum we have. So here the blood is referred as, underline the word, hemolymph. So they won't have hemoglobin. Okay, they have copper based blood, as we have the iron based blood, hemoglobin, but in this they have a copper based blood. Okay, so that is called hemolymph. Underline this word, HEMOLYPH. Okay, and unlike animals, arthropod blood does not, underline the word, does not carry oxygen. So as our blood carry oxygen, for them the blood won't, they do not carry the oxygen here. And you can see the location of all this thing, where the heart is located in arthropods. Okay, the hemocoel is the blood I have just told you. So we read about that in the higher classes when you take these animals in your subject matter. They underline some data that will add on to your understanding. So they have got bilateral symmetrical body line. Then they underline the new word called hard body protected by hard chitinous. Okay, underline the word chitin, the word I hope you might have heard it. So chitinous external skeleton. Okay, chitinous, CHI, write down this word, CHITINOUS, chitinous. Okay, so make sure the word should be known to you, the chitinous external skeleton. Okay, and the, as I already have told you, the phyla consists of largest animals in the animal kingdom, and the numbers are given to you. You just copy it down for your reference. Okay, and these are the various points. Further in brief, you can say have a bilateral symmetry. They have all the openings, mouth and the anal for the ingestion and the excretion. Then body joint section, hence the name called arthropods, and they have a hard exoskeleton made up of chitin. Okay, and examples are there that we already have told you. Then comes the next phylum called Phylum Mollusca. Okay, so these mollusca basically consist of snails and squids. You can see in the photo shot of these animals. So basically they are consisting of the slugs, oysters, octopuses. They come under this phyla called mollusca. And underline the feature for these molluscans. Number one, they have a bilateral symmetry. You can see this word is coming approximately in each phyla. They have a separate opening for mouth and excretion, for where through the anal opening. Then body consists of a visceral mass. So they have something called the muscular foot and a mantle. New word is here, the mantle. that produce the shell, that is the covering of the body. Snails and octopus and squids are the example that I have told you, and write down them again. So they are having unsegmented body. Okay, earlier we have the segmented body, here they have a unsegmented body, and they use the muscular foot for their locomotion. And again they have a habitat, they can live in marine as well as in fresh water. So that is the phyla called mollusca. And now finally we are into the last phyla for this tutorial, because the phyla called chordates or chordata we will take in the next tutorial. That is the phyla that consist of the animals that we know normally, other animals and human beings. For this tutorial, this is the last phyla called Echinodermata. Underline the name, Echinodermata. Okay. So they have the spine-like structures on the skin, because derma means skin. Okay. So Echinodermata, they have spines on the skin. So you can see some of the features. So sea urchins and sea cucumbers come under this category, and I have told you they have spines on the skin. And underline this word, that is the endoskeleton, and make up the endoskeleton of this animal. The water vascular system is there, which bring up the water and then take the things off. Then they have, underline the word, tube feet. Okay, they have something called tube feet for their locomotion, feeding and respiration. So basically all the function is performed by that, more or less. And this Echinodermata, as I have told you, write down the features for again in the respective format. So they are having a spiny skin that I have mentioned you just now. Marine habitat basically are the one, they basically live in this marine culture, and locomotion is sluggish, so they move very slowly, you can say, with the help of tube feet, which I have just told you. And they have something called water vascular system. Underline this word, water vascular system. And the radial symmetry is there, and all these animals including starfishes come under this category. So with this we wind up all these phyla under the first set, and please run through the textbook in particular and copy down all these things that is been told to you. Read the diagram in particular, and then of course draw them. In particular, we have a diagram under the heading called, something we read about in next tutorial, called melanoglossus. You can check the name from the textbook. And here you can see in brief that they have given you all the phyla that we have just read: the Porifera, the Cnidarians, Platyhelminthes, Nematodes, Annelids, Arthropods, Mollusc and Echinodermata. So we have left with the phyla called chordata. So for that we will make an other tutorial for this. For the time being, read them and properly go through the whole topic till we meet for the next time. Take care. Bye.